Ivan stared at the words, the edges of his vision pulsing. His breath came out hard, fogging in the cold warehouse air. The killer wasn't just ritualistic. He had a doctrine, a manifesto. He yanked the clippings down, stuffed them into an evidence bag from his coat. Then he snapped photos of the symbol, the chair, and the message. His hands shook only slightly. Calm on the surface, storm underneath. That was his way, always had been. But as he stood in the ash-stained silence, something unnerved him. He felt watched. The storm outside howled against the walls, but beneath it, he swore he could hear something else. A faint, low whisper. Not words, just breathe. He spun, flashlight cutting through the dark. Nothing, only shadows stretching like skeletal fingers. He forced himself to leave. The next morning, Ivan sat in the Ironwood Precinct briefing room, photographs spread across the table. Captain Reynolds slumped in the corner, nursing black coffee and a headache that reeked of whiskey. Two deputies sat stiffly, eyes wide as Ivan laid out the warehouse evidence. "The killer's building toward something," Ivan said, tapping the photos of the circle on the wall. 12 victims, 2 so far. He's documenting each, keeping score. Reynolds squinted. 12? You sure about that? Ivan met his gaze evenly. Positive. He wrote it himself. The room was silent, the deputies shifting uncomfortably. One of them, a young man barely past 20, finally spoke. Why 12? Ivan shook his head. That's the question. Could be biblical, could be zodiac, could be something older. But whatever it is, he's committed. He won't stop until he finishes. Reynolds swore under his breath. So we sit on our asses waiting for 10 more bodies? Christ, Murphy, I need something actionable. Ivan slid the obituaries across the table. These were on his wall. 6 victims from other states. Matches to cold cases. We put out an alert to every department in the Midwest. We build the map. We find his trail. The captain rubbed his face, muttering, "Fine, do it. But you better pray the feds don't come in and take this off our hands." Ivan didn't answer. His mind was already racing ahead, back to the whispers in the warehouse. 2 nights later, Ivan sat alone in his apartment, the photographs laid out across his kitchen table again. His bourbon glass sat half empty, untouched for an hour. He traced the killer's symbols with his eyes, spiral, sunburst, clock face. Each one different, but connected by the number 12. He opened an old Bible he kept on the shelf, not out of faith but from habit. His grandmother had been Catholic, and though Ivan had grown distant from it, the words still carried weight. He flipped to Revelations, scanning for the number 12. 12 tribes, 12 gates, 12 angels. The killer's language was apocalyptic. He wasn't just silencing voices. He believed he was closing a circle, sealing something. Ivan rubbed his temple, exhaustion gnawing at the edges of his concentration. The whisper from the warehouse echoed in his ears again, faint and mocking. Maybe it was nothing, a trick of the wind, of nerves. But he wasn't sure anymore. The phone rang, sharp and jarring. He grabbed it on the first ring. Murphy. Pause. Then static. And beneath it, a voice. Low, distorted, whispering. 10 remain. Ivan's heart thudded against his ribs. Who is this? Static. Then the click of a dead line. He gripped the receiver so hard his knuckles went white. His apartment was silent again, but the words hung in the air like smoke. 10 remain. By morning, a fresh body was reported. A hunter found her in the woods outside Ontonagon, strung up between 2 birches like a crucifix. A woman in her 30s, dark hair, lips sewn shut, throat cut. The ash symbol beneath her was jagged, angular, like a broken star. Ivan arrived before the sun fully rose. The deputies were pale, their breath pluming in the cold as they muttered. One turned and vomited into the snow. Ivan stood at the base of the birches, looking up at the woman's frozen face. Calm on the outside, storm inside. He wrote notes, photographed, studied the ash pattern. 12 points again, but fractured, incomplete. 3 victims now, 9 to go. He lowered his gaze and noticed something the others hadn't. In the snow at the base of the tree, half covered by drift, was a footprint, larger than his own. Heavy tread like work boots, leading away into the forest. "Get plaster," Ivan ordered. "Cast this before the snow buries it." As they scrambled, he crouched and stared into the dark woods where the prints vanished. The pines swayed, groaning like old bones. He felt the whisper again, crawling at the edges of his mind. The killer wasn't just leaving bodies. He was leaving breadcrumbs, and he wanted Ivan to follow. That night, Ivan couldn't sleep. He sat at his table, the phone cradled in his hand, waiting for it to ring again. Every creak of the building, every groan of the radiator sounded like breath in the dark. Finally, he poured another bourbon, sat back, and closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he wasn't sure if he was awake or dreaming. The room was darker than it should have been. The photographs on the table seemed to shift, the symbols almost pulsing. And then he heard it again, the whisper, closer this time, right behind him. "I see you, Murphy." He spun, revolver drawn, breath ragged. The room was empty, but on his kitchen wall, scrawled in ash he swore hadn't been there before, was another symbol, 12 points, and beneath it, in jagged letters, 9 remain. Chapter 4, The Circle Tightens. The words on his kitchen wall stayed long after the whisper faded. Ivan stood frozen, revolver in his grip, staring at the symbol scrawled in ash across the plaster. The smell of it lingered in the air, burnt, bitter, like a fire smoldering on the edge of dying. He didn't know how long he stood there, chest rising and falling with slow, controlled breaths. When he finally moved, he touched the wall with his gloved hand. The ash smeared, staining black against his skin. Real, not a dream, not a hallucination. Someone had been inside his apartment. The thought should have ignited panic. Instead, it landed like a cold stone in his stomach. If the killer wanted him dead, he would have been dead. This wasn't about violence. It was about theater. The performance had come home. Ivan sat down heavily, revolver still in hand, eyes never leaving the mark on the wall. He poured bourbon into a glass, but his hand didn't shake. It never shook. His calm was a mask he'd worn so long it fused with his bones. But beneath it, something twisted and restless crawled. 9 remained. By morning, the symbol was gone. He didn't remember wiping it away, but the wall was bare when the first pale light of winter crept through his blinds. Only a faint smear remained, as if mocking his memory. At the precinct, the briefing room buzzed with noise. Captain Reynolds was red-faced, slamming papers down. 2 state troopers leaned against the back wall, arms crossed, their uniforms too clean, their stares too sharp. "Murphy," Reynolds barked when he walked in. "The feds are officially circling. Chicago offices got wind of your 12-body theory. They want updates." Ivan dropped his coat on the chair, expression unreadable. "They can wait until we have something concrete." "You think I get to tell them that?" Reynolds snapped. "They'll bury us under suits and tape recorders." The state troopers smirked faintly. Ivan ignored them. He spread the latest photographs across the table. The Ontonagon victim, the starburst of fractured ash beneath her crucified body. 3 victims, all displayed publicly. The killer escalates with each one. He wants attention. Ivan tapped the photo with the butt of his pen. And now he's reaching out directly. He called me, told me how many remain. That got the troopers' attention. "You sit on that until now?" One of them barked. Ivan didn't blink. I had nothing to trace. Static on the line, voice distorted. No callback. Reynolds glared, but there was something almost pleading in his eyes. "Murph, you're too close to this." Ivan met his gaze evenly. "That's why I'm the only one who can stop it." The day dragged with interviews, paperwork, and the endless crawl of procedure. Every minute felt like wasted time. By evening, Ivan found himself back on the road, chasing threads only he could see. The Ontonagon woods pulled him back. He parked where the deputies had found the crucified woman and stepped into the pines alone, snow crunching underfoot. His flashlight beam swept across branches heavy with ice, shadows long and skeletal. He found the footprint cast the deputies had taken, a neat plaster replica in a bag tagged and logged. He studied it under the light. Heavy tread, size 11 or 12. Work boot, probably common. Nothing unique, but standing there in the cold silence, Ivan felt it again, the presence, the whisper that wasn't quite sound. The woods seemed to breathe, branches groaning softly, snow falling in lazy flakes like ash. "You want me out here?" Ivan muttered under his breath. His own voice sounded strange in the emptiness. "You want me looking?" Somewhere deep in the trees, something cracked. A branch? A step? He swung the light, revolver out, breath fogging in harsh bursts. Nothing. The sound didn't come again. Back in Ironwood, the apartment felt tighter than ever. He'd started checking the locks 3 times before sitting down, his revolver never far from reach. Sleep came in snatches, broken by dreams of ash swirling into spirals, voices whispering numbers in the dark. On the 3rd night, he woke to the phone ringing. His hand shot to the receiver before his mind fully caught up. "Murphy." Pause. Then that same distorted whisper. 8 remain. Ivan's grip whitened. "Why me? Why keep calling me?" A low laugh, barely human. Then silence. He slammed the receiver down hard enough to crack the casing. His heart pounded, but his face was stone. Always calm, always controlled. But the storm inside grew louder. The 4th victim came fast. A farmer in his 50s, found in a barn outside Hurley, Wisconsin. Same ritual. Throat cut, lip sewn, ash pattern beneath. This time the ash was laid in a perfect square, each corner marked with small bones. Pig bones by the coroner's analysis. Ivan drove down through the storm, arriving before the coroner's van. The barn smelled of hay, blood, and smoke. He crouched in the straw, studying the square. 12 bones. Always 12. The deputies muttered nervously behind him, one crossing himself over and over. Ivan ignored them. He felt the whisper again, closer this time, threading through the rafters. He spoke aloud, not caring who heard. "I hear you." The deputies went silent. When he looked up, the square of bones seemed to pulse in the lantern light, as though mocking him. That night, Ivan didn't go home. He drove until the highways blurred, ended up parked on the shore of Lake Superior. The water was black, ice forming along the edges, waves breaking in slow, heavy crashes. He lit a cigarette, staring out into the endless dark. His reflection in the windshield looked gaunt, eyes shadowed, hair damp with sweat despite the cold. The killer was closing in, victim by victim, and Ivan could feel himself sinking into the same circle, step by step. 8 remain. The number echoed in his skull, louder than the waves. When he returned to the precinct at dawn, Reynolds was waiting. He slammed a folder on Ivan's desk. "Enough, Murph. You're off this. Feds are taking over." Ivan's eyes narrowed. "No. You don't get a say. The killer's speaking to me. He's not calling anyone else. You sideline me, he vanishes. You want 10 more bodies on your conscience." Reynolds hesitated, jaw tight. He looked older than Ivan had ever seen him. Finally, he sighed. "You've got rope, Murphy. But God help you if you hang yourself with it." Ivan leaned back, calm mask fixed in place. "I don't plan on hanging." But deep down, he wondered, because the whisper in his ears was growing clearer, stronger. And sometimes, in the dead hours of night, it almost sounded like his own voice. Chapter 5, Almost Alive. The call came just before midnight. Ivan had been at his desk in the squad room, nursing burnt coffee, when the phone on the wall rang sharp against the silence. He picked it up before the second ring. "Murphy." It was a deputy out of Wakefield, voice tight with nerves. "Detective, we've got a situation. Farmhouse off Route 28. Neighbors reported screams. We went out, found blood, a lot of it, but the victim's still alive. Barely." Ivan was already standing, coat in hand. Keep her breathing. I'm on my way. The drive cut through black forests, headlights spearing the snow-laden road. Ivan's hands gripped the wheel, calm face fixed, but inside the storm roared. If the killer had slipped, if someone had survived, it could be the break he needed. The farmhouse was 2 stories, leaning with age, windows glowing faint orange from the deputies' lanterns. A cruiser's lights pulsed against the snow. Ivan pulled in hard, boots crunching as he strode across the yard. Inside, the air stank of copper and smoke. In the kitchen, deputies knelt around a woman slumped in a chair, blood soaking her sweater. Her lips were half sewn, stitches torn as if she'd fought while he worked. Her throat bore a deep slash, but not clean through. Her eyes fluttered, wild with terror. Jesus, Ivan muttered, crouching beside her. She needs a hospital now. She's in shock, a deputy said, but she's breathing. Ivan pressed his hand gently against her shoulder, leaning close. Ma'am, can you hear me? You're safe now.
I'm Detective Murphy.
Her lips moved against the stitches. A garbled sound escaped, wet with blood. What is it? Ivan urged, straining to hear. She shuddered violently, eyes rolling, and forced one word past the torn thread. Circle. Then she convulsed, coughing blood, and went still. No, Ivan hissed, pressing fingers to her neck. Weak pulse. Fading. He looked up. Get her out of here. Now. The deputies hauled her onto a stretcher, rushing toward the ambulance outside. Ivan stayed behind, scanning the kitchen. Blood pooled across the linoleum, dragged in streaks toward the back door. He followed the trail out into the snow. Their footprints, heavy, booted, leading toward the treeline. He drew his revolver and flashlight, heart pounding but movement steady. He followed the prints into the woods, the silence broken only by his own breath and the crunch of snow. 50 yards in, he found it. Another ash symbol, this one unfinished, only half a spiral burned into the snow. A pile of bone fragments lay scattered nearby, as though dropped in haste. Ivan's light swept across the trees. They loomed like watchmen, shadows deep and shifting. He called out, voice hard. I know you're here. The whisper answered, not from the trees, not from the wind, from inside his own ears, soft and intimate. You came too soon, Murphy. Ivan's skin crawled. He spun, flashlight jerking over bark and snow. Nothing. Show yourself, he growled. A laugh, low, broken, almost childlike. 7 remain. Ivan fired into the dark. One shot, then another. The report cracked through the forest, echoing back at him. But the woods only whispered with the wind. The footprints vanished where the snow deepened. No trail left. He returned to the farmhouse hours later, dawn bleeding pale across the horizon. Deputies were gone. The ambulance had taken the woman, but word came quickly over the radio. She hadn't made it. Another life claimed, another voice silenced, but this time she had spoken. Circle. Ivan sat on the back steps of the farmhouse, cigarette burning low between his fingers, eyes fixed on the treeline. His calm face betrayed nothing. Inside, the storm battered harder. He had been close enough to hear the killer laugh, close enough to interrupt the ritual, but it wasn't enough. He'd failed again. Back at the precinct, the atmosphere was grim. Captain Reynolds paced the briefing room, sweat shining on his bald head. You nearly walked into the bastard alone? Christ, Murphy, you could have been strung up in the snow like the rest. Ivan sat across from him, impassive. She was alive when I found her. That's more than we've had so far. And now she's dead, Reynolds snapped. Ivan's jaw tightened. She gave me a word before she went. He slid the note across the table. Circle. Reynolds frowned. What the hell's that supposed to mean? Ivan leaned back, eyes shadowed. Everything. That evening, Ivan dug through old files. Ritual killings, Midwest cold cases, obscure religious sections. Over and over, the word surfaced. Circles. Wiccan rites, pagan symbols, even the book of Revelation's 12 gates of the holy city. Always 12. Always the circle closing. The killer wasn't inventing his own theology. He was stitching fragments together, building something monstrous out of borrowed faiths. Ivan scrawled the word across his wall in thick black ink, staring at it until the letters blurred. Circle. 7 remain. 2 in the morning, the phone rang again. Ivan grabbed it instantly, pulse leaping. Murphy. This time, no whisper. A man's voice, calm, clear, even warm. You're learning. Ivan's grip tightened. Who are you? A voice among many, soon to be none. Why me? Why call me? Pause. Then, because you listen. The others don't. You hear the circle closing. Ivan's breath came slow, measured. If you want me to hear, then meet me, face to face. Another pause, then a soft chuckle. Not yet. You're not ready. Click. Ivan slammed the phone down. His heart thundered, but his face remained stone. He stared at the ink-scrawled word on his wall, feeling the storm rise louder than ever. Circle. The killer was no longer just taunting. He was teaching, and Ivan knew with a certainty that hollowed him out. He was listening. By morning, another body dropped. This one in a church. A janitor found her in the nave of St. Agnes in Bessemer, laid across the altar. Young woman, early 20s, lips sewn, throat cut. The ash pattern stretched across the stone floor. A perfect circle this time, 12 points spaced like a clock. Ivan stood in the church's cold silence, the stained glass above fractured by frost. The symbol seemed to glow faintly in the morning light, mocking the sacred. A priest stood weeping in the corner, muttering prayers. Deputies whispered about the devil. Ivan crouched, eyes burning into the ash circle. He traced the line with his glove, slow and deliberate. 7 remain. The circle was tightening, and he was right in the middle of it. Chapter 6, Sleepless Shadows. Ivan hadn't slept in 3 days. Not properly. Not more than a few minutes, slumped in his chair, eyes burning, dreams twisting into whispers before snapping him awake again. Coffee no longer sharpened him. It just kept his hands moving, his pen scratching, his eyes staring at the same photographs until they blurred. The precinct had started to notice. Deputies gave him wide berth in the halls, whispering after he passed. Even Captain Reynolds looked at him differently now, not angry so much as wary, like a man watching a wolf stalk too close to the fence. But Ivan didn't care. The storm inside left no room for appearances. 7 remain. The words rang constantly in his head, no matter where he was, no matter what he tried to drown them with. They pulsed like a heartbeat. Sometimes he swore he heard them outside of himself, whispered low in the hum of the fluorescent lights, muttered,